How's it going? This is Feel the Burn podcast. It is December 28th. I'm here with Christopher Denson, Lamar Fields, and Franklin Miller. And today we're going to be talking about quite a few things. The Cardinals have been in the news nonstop over the past couple of weeks. So we're going to get started with J.J. Watt retirement. Just came out today that none of the Cardinals players nor coaches knew about the fact that he was planning on retiring or going to retire. Colt McCoy stated that he figured it out and was watching TV on the couch, and that's when he learned that J.J. Watt was retiring. What does it say about this team that J.J. is that a bad look on the Cardinals, the fact that J.J. didn't communicate with them, or is that something typical that you would see?
Honestly, I don't think it's typical. I think maybe he really didn't know that he was going to do it, and then it was just something where he didn't know how to really.
Well, he said that he knew 2 weeks beforehand. He said it was perfect timing because of how the Cardinals have played this season. He said it was kind of, it worked out well because he didn't have to worry about anything else afterwards. So that's why
I don't think it really says anything, because I think people will take that and it's like a negative spin on him, like, oh, he didn't care enough to tell the team that he was gonna, But I think a lot of people saw that may be the case. You take his age, you take his injury history, and it's just kind of like, and you take, like you said, with him with the Cardinals, it's like they haven't had the best season, so the writing was kind of on the wall. I mean, it's just one of those things where I don't think it makes him look like paints a bad image on him, honestly. I mean, I think I saw somebody retweet like an old video of him back with the Texans where he just was like going in on like his other teammates and how, you shouldn't come to work if you're not going to come to, be the best. And I think that is what people remember him for. It's not necessarily like the impromptu, retirement announcement.
Yeah, I mean, to echo what Chris is saying, I agree. I don't think it's any hindering on, the Cardinals or Cliff Kingsbury. I just think that they're getting bad publicity for this because of how the season's gone thus far and how people view Cliff Kingsbury as a coach and about how all the changes that need to be made going into the off season. But I think this was basically just between J.J. Watt, his wife, and his family, and I think that nobody, altered him to make a different outcome of this. This was something that's been on his heart probably for a long time. I don't think he was trying to do the Cardinals any, bad will or anything. I think this was strictly between him and his family, and I commend him for it. He's one of the greatest players that's ever played this game. If I'm not mistaken, he's probably the only player that's had 2 seasons where he's had over 20 sacks. Is a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. For him to just go out on his own terms, it says a lot. And I think it's less to say about the Cardinals and more to say about the media itself not wanting the story to get out there before he says something. Because you can imagine if he said something to the Cardinals and somebody was hearing something that would have leaked out. So he wanted to keep it tight to the core and wanted it to come from the source, which was himself. So, and this isn't the only time he's done something like this. So I commend him for it, and I think it has nothing to do with the Cardinals.
Yeah, I don't think it got nothing to do with the Cardinals. He just had his first kid, and when you have kids, man, you start looking at life differently. I got 2 kids, and I tell you, you definitely start looking at life in perspective, especially when he went through what he went through with his heart. He had to get his heart restarted or something like that.
That was crazy.
That'd have been enough for me to retire right then on the spot.
Yeah, you're right.
It's disappointing. I mean, 10 seasons with the Texans. I think they made the playoffs 2, maybe 3 times in that span. 2 seasons with the Cardinals. I mean, that's just, for a player his caliber, you would have liked to see him at least make a run in the playoffs. Get that ring. I would have liked to see him sign with maybe like the Bills or the Chiefs next season, but it's completely understandable. I mean, he's in his 30s. It's a lot of wear on the body. All right, so let's move on to Cliff Kingsbury. We had that bombshell ESPN report. Kingsbury came out and pretty much said, I don't know what that is. No, I never, I don't know where they got this information. He kind of was very hush up about it, but pretty much the report read that him and Kyler Murray aren't seeing straight. They're not on the same page. Kingsbury's pretty much saying, I'm done. Like, I'm tired of this. I don't like showing up to work anymore. I'm not having fun. And I mean, just from his facial expressions on the sidelines, if you look at any picture of him, he has the same kind of saddening face, and you're looking at him and you're like, he doesn't look like he wants to be there. What do you guys think about this? Do you think, think it's a done deal? Kingsbury's gone after the season?
I mean, yeah, I think it's a writing on the wall. I think it's damage control for him right now. You know, it's I technically got a couple of games left in me, where I have to be in front of the camera. I have to, so not going out on a bad leg, but it's damage control at this point. The writing's on the wall. That whole front office is probably, knowing what's about to transpire as soon as they played their last second of that game where he's out of there, and I just, much like I think you said, Jacob, a while ago, I just don't see a scenario where he comes back. It's very hard to believe unless they just strike out on every coaching candidate that they have lined up that he's back on those sidelines again.
Yeah. I would echo what Chris is saying. I know in previous episodes I said that the likelihood is that Kingsbury's probably going to come back and that Steve Keim would be the one that's probably going to be ousted out. But based on these reports and everything that's been going on, I assume that as soon as the season's over that Michael Bidwell is just going to clean house. He's just going to start this whole process over. And I think it's the right thing to do.
Definitely.
I honestly will go on the limb here and I don't mean to be mean or anything. I really don't think that Cliff I don't think it was right for the Cardinals to even make him the head coach to begin with. I know they had a very good 8-0 start to the season, but if you look at his track record in college and he has his win-loss record is more losses than wins. And I think that exactly, yeah. And yeah, that speaks volume to itself. I think what happened was every team got into this whole likelihood of we want this boy genius. Oh, he knew Sean McVay. Oh, he must be a really good coach. And I think they just fell into the hoopla of that to the point where they didn't really know what they were really getting themselves into. And you look at the air raid offense and it was, they were like, oh, wow, we can maybe see something different here. But in all likelihood that the one thing that they didn't kind of see was not only just a win-loss record, but how can you really manage? How is he going to be managing the team? How is he going to be when the losing comes? And then it's not just college students, but it's just grown men that actually need to get paid, need to feed their families, and that's all that before we even get to the Kyler Murray stuff, which, I mean, it's no secret that that's been kind of. I mean, we can say what they want. They can dish out of like, oh, it's not really, there or not, but there's something there between those two guys. Yeah, it's all part of the business, and I want to get stuff out there, which I understand. But there's definitely something in there between those two, and I think it's in Michael Bidwell's justice to just clean slate and just start over and look ahead to the future of this team.
Lamar, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's time to move on. You got to move on. You got some good pieces in place, and you don't want to waste it with another season of Kingsbury at the helm. I mean, our disagreements and stuff it happens. Even good teams, coaches and quarterback disagree. Me being a Raider fan in the early 2000s, Gruden and Rich Gaines to fight all the time, but didn't get talked about because they won games. So when you lose games, everything's magnified to a different level. But yeah, it's time to move on. If they can get Sean Payton, they should go all in on Sean Payton if I was them.
So speaking of, they have the solid pieces. Do they lose the last two games? Right now they're sitting. They're tied with the Broncos for the third worst record. What is the mindset there? Are they playing their heart out? Are they going for those wins, or are they, thinking about that third overall pick in that 2023 draft? Let's say they win those last two games. They got the Falcons and they got the 49ers. And they win those, they're looking at a fifth or sixth pick, still good. But what are you guys thinking there? Is it embrace the tank, or is it, play this season and play it out?
It's for sure play it out, especially if you're looking at it from like the likelihood of these players, and coaches. I mean, at the end of the day, these players and coaches know that the whole likelihood of them kind of starting from scratch and kind of turning this over, they're trying to make sure that they're one of those people that are still a part of that has a job next year. So from that regards, they're definitely gonna play this out. I expect a really hard fought out effort from these two teams. I expect the defense to show up. I actually think they're going to beat the Falcons this upcoming weekend, and and I feel like that's going to be their last one of the season. I just think that from for what it's worth, that they're gonna play their hearts out because they got families to feed and all likelihoods of just not knowing where they're going to be next year. So they're absolutely going to be playing out more so than tanking for a good draft pick.
Yeah, I think they could beat the Falcons, but the Niner game is a whole different story, especially if the Niners still playing for the second seed. Yeah, the Niners are tough, man. Number one defense and the offense clicking right now. But yeah, I think they could steal a game against the Falcons. They got a rookie quarterback starting.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see how that game takes place.
All right, Chris, why don't you get us started on this Hollywood Brown stuff? What was released yesterday and what do we know?
So apparently, there's been a misconceived notion about Brown's playing time. Within the last game that they played, apparently there was something where they thought that he maybe was injured or something of that notion. And apparently the Cardinals tried to possibly put the fire control on it, scrape it out, but there was a situation, MSN reported, where Brown was late to practice, and so Kingsbury ultimately decided to cut his playing time. And because of that, Greg Dortch received most of that playing time. And that was a notion where maybe Hollywood Brown just didn't get to go because of whatever reason. But with that, Hollywood Brown has a murky, not super murky, but he has his troubles here and there where he can
criminal speeding.
Right. So it's not his first instance. It's one of those things where, at times he could be a possible flight risk, but his talents that you get from it is, something that you certainly, take into consideration when you brought somebody like that aboard. So, what that does for him coming into, the week coming up with, going against the Falcons, I don't really see it being a huge issue. I mean, like you said, the Falcons is a team where you can get that win from them if need be. But you just got to kind of wonder with, the Kingsbury stuff going on, is that something that plays into effect going forward? I don't think so. But is it something where people are, fans are looking and it's kind of like if that had made major headlines, it may have been all the more reason for people to want Kingsbury to get pushed out even more. And a couple of fans did say something about it on Twitter. I saw fans saying, some were divided, saying players should be more accountable, understood. And then some players were saying, fans were saying, why take away his playing time for something like that in an actual game? So, but, if it had been blown into more of a spectacle, then definitely would have added more fuel to the Kingsbury getting out of their fire. 99% sure, because people at this point are just looking for a reason to, as you said, jump on the Sean Payton bandwagon and hopefully get him in there for the season coming up.
Yeah, so Marquise Brown played a season low 66% of offensive snaps against the Buccaneers. Meanwhile, Rondell Moore had his best game of his career, and he's looking like a strong potential to be a breakout star next year. When he plays and when he's healthy, he's done very well. I mean, he's competing with Marquise Brown, with DeAndre Hopkins for reps. And I think as a solid third wide receiver, he's one of the best in the league for that third guy. And they get that trio going. You have Kyler Murray healthy. That's something to look forward to next year. But I think it speaks volume on the entire Arizona Cardinals situation that's going on right now. It seemed very hushed up. You didn't hear much about it. There was really no report coming from the Cardinals themselves or any statements from Cliff Kingsbury. He was never asked any questions about it that I'm aware of. And it seemed like they didn't want it to really go anywhere. I think Yeah, you're right with that. They don't want any more to go down with Cliff, and
Yeah.
I think all the
Yeah.
players, I don't want to speak for them, but I think they would be more than happy to see him gone next season. So,
Yeah.
on that note, what do you guys think the chances are of Sean Payton coming? For me, I don't think he will be. I think his price tag's too large, and he doesn't want to be a part of the situation. I know Vegas just boosted those odds, but I think he'll look towards something like the Broncos. Already have a strong defense. Russell Wilson has the potential. What are you guys thinking towards Sean Payton?
Yeah, I agree. As much as like it's a hot topic, it's kind of similar to the Suns owner kind of thing, where it's like, oh, Jeff Bezos or all these big name guys, but they end up with like someone you didn't even thought of in Matt Ishiba. I think it's gonna be a similar situation like that. There's gonna be a hot commodity looking ahead in the future, and I think that they're in the future that they're gonna probably hire somebody that's kind of up and coming that not a lot of people know about quite yet. Yeah. So it's just going to be one of those situations where I don't think Sean Payton's coming. But for next head coach that will begin this Cardinals gig, one thing they can look forward to is a lot of talent on the offensive side. I think, in my opinion, the Cardinals have one of the best wide receiving depths in the league. Definitely. In my opinion, with DeAndre Hopkins and Marquise Hollywood-Brown and Rondale Moore, who, if he just gets opportunities, I think opportunities has just been the reason why he hasn't produced consistently. But when he gets his opportunities, he's like one of the best. But once he gets his opportunities, it's a wrap. Greg Dortch has been another player that's been up and coming. So the sky's the limit. And then that's not to mention with James Conner and Zach Ertz on your team as well. And then a healthier O-line that's actually, when healthy, like above average in the league.
Yeah.
I'd say top 15. I think you have a lot to work with. But I don't think that person that's going to be in the helm of that is going to be Sean Payton, just because of a lot of the finer details of like ownership and like the GM and everything that's not going to be in place. So I think it's going to be something where they're going to have to look somewhere else.
I think with Kyler Murray being out it's looking like 3 weeks, maybe even 4 for next season. I don't think Sean Payton wants to touch that. Colt McCoy might retire this offseason. Cardinals may be looking to draft a quarterback late in this draft. I'm not sure who they're going to have as their backup next season. Maybe Tracy McCoy. But I don't think Sean Payton wants anything to do with that. And I don't think the Cardinals necessarily need Sean Payton. They're 1-12 in their last 13 home games. I think that if they bring anybody except Kingsbury, they can get that home spark back. They can get fans interested back into the stadium. Those have been selling out the away crowds every time. And I just think as long as it's not Cliff Kingsbury, fans will be happy.
Yeah, I think they should. Probably won't get Payton. Payton probably end up with the Broncos. I think the Broncos going to do everything it is to get him.
Yeah,
you should look at Eric Bieniemy. It's time for him to get a coaching job. He's been under Andy Reid for years, so he definitely know offense and got some crazy play design. So why not?
Mm-hmm. Also, another question like to add on to this whole Sean Payton thing is like, are the Cardinals going to be looking for somebody to kind of help mold Kyler Murray and get him back on track, or is it going to be like a situation where are they going to want to like bring someone in that like is their own guy? So
Sean
that's why.
Payton... Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, that's why I said that with the Eric Bieniemy thing, like they run like a hybrid of air raid and West Coast offense, and I think that can bode well for a guy like Kyler Murray. But also, it's like if they get somebody else, would that system fit to Kyler Murray's strengths? Like that's kind of like the question I would like have. But it's a good pick, to say the least.
He's gonna bring. I don't know if he'll be offense coordinator wherever he goes, but he's going to bring, a couple coaches with him. He made that clear that where he goes, he's bringing some guys with him. And he also made it clear that he doesn't want to have to develop a quarterback. And I think that's another fear. Is Kyler Murray developed? He's going on his 4th season. So I will say Russell Wilson's a lot more, even though he's having a rough year, a lot more experience, a lot more developed, something that Sean Payton will work with. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the Suns. We'll start with Booker. Announced today is at 4 weeks on his groin injury. What do you have for us, Franklin?
Yeah, so it's unfortunate news with Devin Booker. He went back home after Christmas Day to get like further evaluation on a groin injury that he suffered against the Nuggets on Christmas. Before that, he was out for 3 games with like groin tightness in his left leg, and I feel like as soon as like he was like walking up the court at like the 8-minute mark, you kind of knew something was wrong, and then you blink and like he's not even on the floor or on the bench, and you know at that moment that like, okay, something's really, really wrong. So after getting further evaluation on going back home to Phoenix, it's been told that he has a left groin strain that's going to keep him out for the next month. So with that being said, now the Suns are without Devin Booker. They're without Landry Shamet, who has right Achilles tightness as is right now, or soreness, excuse me. You're without Cameron Payne, but he's expected to be back within this road trip, so that's a good sign. And you still are without Cam Johnson with the right torn meniscus, who's making great progress, but he still has a ways to go before he's back on the court. So it's kind of tough as if you're a Phoenix Suns fan right now, to be honest. I guess the good news is they're 20-15 and they're 5th in the West, and the West is kind of close right now. So that's a good news for the Suns. So that way, if they can just, stay afloat for right now and just stay healthy, and just get healthy, like in the back end of the season, it could bode well for them, because I think they are one of the better teams in the West when fully healthy. But as of right now, they're just gonna have to they're just gonna have to win with defense, effort, and there's gonna have to be just the occasional games where they get hot from 3, like they did last night against the Grizzlies. So, but for right now, they're just gonna have to make do with what they got. That's gonna be a big challenge for Monty Williams, and if he can pull this off, I'm gonna go a step further. I think he should be in the Coach of the Year running if he can pull this off. But that's either here nor there. That's for the conversation for another day.
Yeah, if he can pull that off, that'd be one thing. I think what a lot of people want to see coming up in this 4-week span that you don't have Booker is, if you're a Suns fan, I want to see if Mikal Bridges and DeAndre Ayton can be that second guy going forward. I need to see that from either, if not both of you. Because the talk, even when Booker's in, is that neither of those guys is that guy. And, now you have to be that guy going forward for a considerable amount of time because there's no Booker. And you get it from Ayton here and there. We talk about it all the time. You get it from him here and there, and then he disappears. Bridges has his moments, and then he disappears. And it's that their ceiling where you're going to get it here and there. And if so, you're going to have a little bit of backlash, more so from the Ayton thing because it's still fresh with the extension. But if so, then the Suns have to pivot at some point into making sure that Booker feels comfortable with a good second, running mate. That way they don't have to run the risk of a Luka situation where, it's almost like every game's a panic game for him as far as them trying to keep him happy. You don't want it to get to that with Booker where it's like, okay, I have these names on paper, but I look around and I'm the only guy that can consistently get it done. So I think that's where they're at right now. This Booker thing, it's bad, but it's going to serve as a pretty pivotal time frame for people to realize if Ayton is that guy or if Bridges can be that guy going forward. I don't think it's more so about wins and losses. Obviously, you don't want to slide too far down, but I think Suns fans and media alike would be a lot more proud to know that, hey, we don't got Booker. Yeah, we're losing him, but, they're going out there every day. Ayton's, having MVP-like nights. Bridges is showing he was worth the extension from both sides of the floor. That's what I think people want to see.
I think if they can just maintain, kind of 5th, 4th, 6th place in the West, keep around that general area. That's the ideal situation. Just not to fall out of the race because it's so tight. They go on a 4-game stretch of losing, and all of a sudden you're sitting in the 9th spot. And that's
it's so easy to do in the West too, because in the West, like you said, heck, at one point, first seed through fifth seed, 19 games was the thing that all of them had, where you go out to the East and it's so different. It's a polar opposite. So you can afford it, but it's the next man's up league, which kind of brings it to the next portion of, Dwayne Washington Jr. He steps in last night, and he's kind of been doing that pretty consistently, when he gets the opportunity. Yeah, but, he doesn't really have those opportunities because of a Cameron Payne or Chris Paul or Shamit. Now you don't have two of those three people in, and so now you're kind of heavily relied on. And I think honestly, I think most of us have made the case for he needs more solid, minutes in the rotation. He does.
I look at it kind of like a Greg Dortch situation. He's kind of following a couple guys, but when he gets his time, he's playing well. Of course, his performance last night isn't going to be sustainable. His season high in points, rebounds, assists, just about every category imaginable. Is this maybe something you can start seeing more consistently? He shot 5 for 9 from the 3-point line. It's only his second year. He's only 22 years old. He's got a lot of years ahead of him. Maybe a lot more with the Suns. This is something that you can look forward to as a Suns fan, seeing this guy night in, night out, putting up some points.
I will go as far as to say there's going to be obviously be nights where he's not going to shoot the ball well, and I feel like it's kind of unfair to I'm not saying that you are, but just for fans in general, it's kind of unfair to put a lot of pressure on him just because of all these injuries for him to be the scorer on this team. That's going back to Chris's point of Mikal and DA need to got to step up with Book out, but I'll go as far as to say that the interesting thing that Monty Williams said in yesterday's press conference after the game was how he was kind of, when he first got in with the Suns, when they first acquired him this offseason, was he was a little too, the word I'm looking for is just too, no one say aggressive or anything, but in terms of the system, he was trying so hard to do what the coaches were telling him to do, where he was thinking too much. And I feel like you kind of saw that in the beginning of the season when he did get his opportunities, where he was trying so hard to make the right play, trying so hard to do the right thing, to where he wasn't just being himself. And that kind of took a turn when Monty and them had a conversation with him about hey, I want you to, just to be you. And then that's exactly what he did yesterday. I felt like it was just more of a feel for him. He Dwayne said yesterday, it was when that transition 3 went in, he just kind of felt it, and he felt like it was just going to be that kind of night. And so I'm not really expecting him to have hot nights like he did yesterday, but with the free-for-all game that he'll play, knowing that he's going to get more playing time, getting to see a little bit more action, I feel like just as a facilitator, just based off of pick and roll action and pin downs with DA, I think it's going to bode well for the Suns moving forward, for them to have a guard like this to be able to just generate not just a lot of minutes while people are out, but just some game actions to where they're going to get some points off the bench, especially with Payton and Landry Shamet out. So I think it bodes well for the Suns moving forward to have a guy like this. And I agree that he does need to get a little bit more playing time, because he is, in my opinion, at least of right now, he's one of the best scoring options on the team. And he is, honestly, when it is fully healthy as well. But if there's one thing that could be told is would you want either Cameron Payne out there? Do you want with Dwayne Washington, or do you want Dwayne Washington to get more playing time than Cam Payne when he's back? Or do you want Landry Shamet's minutes to decline? Because I wouldn't say that, because he's been balling as well when he's healthy. So it's a kind of tough thing to say. But I mean, I know I'm rambling, but it's just a lot of ideas that Monty was going to have to answer. But I can say right now consistently that, he needs more playing time, especially now.
It's kind of been the story of the Suns seasons. You have a lot of players who they'll go on hot streaks, and all of a sudden it's looking like this guy needs more minutes. And it's been a lot of inconsistency. It's been enough consistency to stay on the winning side of things for the most part, but you really haven't had players that have stayed consistently hot all year. It's kind of a new breakout player every other week, and you never know what you're going to expect. Cam Payne might put up 25 one night, and next night he's going 0 for 5. It's kind of been the story.
Yeah.
Speaking on that, we have any updates on Jay Crowder? What's going on there? Another bench player maybe come this way to fill that role, or is he done?
Honestly, there's really nothing too crazy on the front with Jay Crowder. I know there's been like a lot of hot names. There was one situation that I've heard that there was like reports that the Suns turned down. Speaking of the Washington Wizards tonight, that they turned down a 3-team trade deal where Rui Hashimura, that a bench player for the Wizards, is actually in line to come to the Suns, but the Suns turned that down in regard to Jay Crowder, and I don't know the reasons behind it, but all I know is that was something that was on the table that the Suns decided not to pursue, and I think a lot of that had to do with the Suns are probably looking for a little bit more of a scoring option to get in return for Jay Crowder, and with them getting Hashimura, I feel like they're getting a guy that's a similar boat to like what they already have in Torrey Craig. And in my opinion, Torrey Craig has been a guy that actually, in my opinion, Torrey Craig's been an unsung hero this year. I think he's been giving the Suns exactly what Jay Crowder has given them the past like couple years. And when Cam Johnson comes back, that's a guy that you're having on the come off the bench. Now, will Jay Crowder get traded? Yes, he will eventually get traded, but it's definitely a waiting game. I think that they're waiting for the right deal to come still, as opposed to just getting rid of him. Yeah, and so
I think
it's just
a bit less interested now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just one of those situations.
I think he kind of played himself out. I saw that report. I know you guys saw it too, and I think we all thought about it, but seeing it on paper is like he probably did play himself out. Like they said, when Kevin Durant did it, that's one thing, it's Kevin Durant. But with Jay Crowder, it's like you're not going to show us any capabilities. There's a ton of other wings out here that we can get to do what you do, and you're sitting out. It doesn't make sense, and so like you said, with that, it's kind of weird. I think if the, Suns did want somebody from the Wizards, like you said, Frank, I think it would be somebody like Kuz, which kind of above the Crowder asking price at that point, I believe. But they kind of want somebody of that caliber. And I don't, even with the new owner coming into town, I don't think you see where they get a Kuz caliber player without forking over something else besides Crowder, because now we have to sit here and say, okay, we haven't seen him since literally last season. Can he still play good? It's a lot of question marks with that.
Yep.
And on top of that, do I want someone who's going to show those kind of tendencies where they want to sit out? And I mean, for crying out loud, even when Anthony Davis requested his trade, New Orleans fans hated him, for all the reasons in the world, but still came, still sat, still supported his team. And once again, I think that comes back down to, if you got Anthony Davis doing that and you're not a Kevin Durant, it kind of plays you out of that look at me, I need to get out of here situation where people are like running to get you.
Yeah.
Lamar, any players you think would be on it?
Yeah, they got I don't know, that new owner might come in like, man, y'all need to trade him or ASAP or something, because I mean, they're trying to wait for somebody to panic and just make any type of move. I don't think nobody gonna panic over Jay Crowder. I mean, he's a good player, play defense threes, but he go cold from three a lot too. So I don't know. I think the Suns just banking on him. Somebody panicking at the trade deadline, and I don't think it's gonna happen. They're gonna end up being stuck with him for that's bad if they don't trade him.
Yeah, I think it's a thing where at the deadline you see them making calls for him versus getting calls for him, because there's so many teams that are going to be trying to get, other players or get off of deals. He's not going to be one of the first things flying off the shelf come the deadline if he's still there by then. It's going to be the Suns trying to move him at that point and settling for, a Hachimura type of situation, and maybe having to fork something over on top of that because, hey, we know you've been sitting on this guy for, half a season now. So, give us something else, throw in a second rounder or something of that sort to get him off your hands. So I don't think it played out well. Yeah, I don't think it played out well. And I know the owner situation kind of maneuvered into that, but at the same time, it's like you guys had so many deals come across your desk that you probably could have went on and made something out of, but you stayed hot in the moment of trying to capitalize. But his trade stock has not went up. That's the thing I think everybody forgets. Your trade stock goes up when people see you play and contribute, but you're not doing that. The most you're contributing is on Twitter. So there's not a whole lot of movement going on where people are like, we need to act on Crowder and we need to act on it now. That's not happening.
Yeah, that's another thing. Teams be like, this guy ain't played in how long and how did we? I mean, he gonna be in shape, but he ain't gonna be in game shape.
He's not in game shape. Like he's not. That's the thing. Like I have to try to acclimate you to our schemes, our schematics. Second half of the season when we're trying to get playoff ready and playoff form, that's when a lot of teams start gelling. And now we have to deal with like Lamar said, a guy that can get cold. Yeah, he can play defense, but it's too many ifs in there for people. And this whole sit out thing that he did, I don't think that's going to help him get traded. And I think he knows that by now. I think if he didn't know it, maybe his agent or somebody told him, like, this probably didn't go the way that we thought it should have went. It kind of backfired.
Oh, 100%. And I even add on, teams are going to lowball the Suns for, like you said, Jay Crowder, once we get closer. And that's going to be tough. I mean, the only way the Suns kind of get a player caliber of Kyle Kuzma is, quite frankly, if the 3-team trade deal is around. I know there was like a situation where, like, if the Hawks were interested in like a guy like Jay Crowder, that they'd have to get the Wizards involved if they wanted to eat up John Collins' salary, and then you'd have to from that point you can try to find a way to fit Kuzma in here, and it's a lot of. And on top of that, you have to fork another player like a Josh Okogie or maybe even a Landry Shamet, and it's like, dang, and it's a lot of crazy variables that have to come across. But yeah, you guys hit it around the money. Like,
it kind of makes you wonder. I think it makes you wonder if they did it not right away, but like maybe a little bit later than they are right now. You probably get Crowder out of there by himself, and now you probably are going to have to fork over somebody that's helped you get as far as you have, a Josh Okogie or somebody of that caliber just to get him off the books. So it's kind of sad.
Yeah, especially if you knew that like he was going to sit out. It's like you probably would have wanted to like get that deal done before the season, or like a few games into the season before you're at the point now where it's like bad. But yeah.
So we have tip off on this Suns Wizards game. Who do you guys got tonight?
Ooh. So, this is how I look at it. I'm going to pull for the Suns, obviously. I think they can pull it out just because of how they played against the Grizzlies. But either way, I feel like you can't pull we don't have Booker because I saw they don't have Bill, right? So you're kind of leveling the playing field. It's next second best player versus next second best player. So I'm pulling for the Suns, but I don't feel like there's a lot of room for excuse if we can't pull out a win against them. I mean, heck, they had lost 10 or 11 in a row when we played them last time. So, yeah.
That was a tough loss.
Yeah. I am going to be frank. I'm going to say, as crazy as it sounds, I think the Wizards are going to win tonight. And that's not to say that I don't like the Suns are going to be in it with them. Don't get me wrong. I actually think even with the injuries, they can stick with this team. I just think it's tough to replicate 17 of 31 from 3 in back-to-back games when your body's tired. And I feel like that's going to be like, especially when you're traveling.
I'll be impressed.
Exactly, especially when you're traveling. I think that's a little tall order. But I do believe the effort's still going to be there because they know that that's what's going to take for them to even stay in these games with all these injuries. But I got the Wizards tonight. I think Kyle Kuzma and Kristaps Porzingis, who's now playing tonight, they're gonna take care. They've won 3 of the last 4. They just beat the Sixers not that long ago. So I think they're gonna beat the Suns again. I hope I'm wrong though.
Yeah, I got the Wizards. Kuzma with a chance to showcase his skills with no Bill there. Yeah, I think Kuzma have a big night. You know,
Come to Phoenix, Kuzma.
He probably trying to get traded too. So, you know, any chance he get to be the number one option, he gonna take full advantage of that.
Yeah, you got the Ayton versus Porzingis battle going on down low. So he's got to show up against somebody like Porzingis. Porzingis isn't what he used to be, but still a formidable force when he wants to be. So got to show up.
Yeah. All right. So that will probably wrap up today's episode of Feel the Burn podcast. Thank you guys for joining in. Once again, I'm Jacob Hart. We got Chris Denson, Franklin Miller, and Lamar Fields, and we will catch you guys next week. Thank you.